Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book from Robert Spicer on law. It's this book here, we'll have a look at it in a minute. Robert's produced this book, it's FastPrint Publishing, so it's actually a private printing arrangement that he's come up with. My wife and I have looked at this book and we thought we would review it. We've given it a title, A Rebellious View of Law from an Acknowledged Radical. Spicer does hit his goal regularly from time to time with the great debate. Now, he makes a lot of important points. Let's look at the book first of all and get an idea. It's quite a big book, chunky book, spine, and then at the back there's a little bit of information. It runs to 462 pages. There's an interesting little index. You can see the typeface is rather different. You've then got at the back a list of abbreviations. He's put a lot of stuff at the back. Then you've got websites, very useful for the student. You've also got a case list at the back, in other words, the cases he refers to. Then you've got further reading. And after that, and working backwards, you've got what is quite a useful glossary, which is there, running through. And then you get into the text itself. There are no footnotes or anything like that. You've got quite a lot, and there's no numbering, there's no paragraph numbering. This is something about public access work for barristers, for instance. And then right at the front, if we just go to the front, you can see the title itself, which is there. That's the title page. Then you've got some information, second edition, prepared with help from other people. And he's got some quotes. Then we go into the work itself. That is the actual. There are 7 chapters. You can see them listed there. They've all got one-word titles. Then you have little quotes, and then an introduction there, what he's intending to do, and what he's getting off his chest. And then you get chapter 1 on money. And you've got some interesting quotes. He mentions Mario Puzo in The Godfather, Goldsmith, the Traveller, and various other people, and then goes straight into Lord Bingham. So this is an erudite work in many ways. There's a lot in it. It comes from a left-wing point of view, if I can put it that way. I think the important thing to remember is an awful lot of what he says, probably not that much political, but I have used the word rebellious and the word radical because that's what these points are. And I think they find favour with a lot of people, only not at the top of the various professions and political strands of opinion that we have. However, it is part of the debate, and I think it's an important part of the debate because he raises some very fundamental points which anybody who I think is perhaps involved in studying law, certainly at a slightly higher level, perhaps at undergraduate level, might find this book of some interest. Although when we're young, we do tend to be a little bit more left-wing, and as we get older, we tend to moderate our tone. Robert hasn't, and I'm glad he hasn't, because he makes some good points. This is what we say about the book, anyway. There's always a place for radical lawyers within both the wider legal profession and the bar itself, although as a breed, they seem to be dying out now. The role of the advocate becomes progressively more restricted by over-regulation and a general tightening up of our forensic freedoms, at least at the moment. So don't expect too much in the way of conclusions to the statement on the great debate which Robert Spicer makes, but do recall that he does round up the usual suspects rather well with his self-published critique of modern law with all its failings. We welcome Spicer's law. It's rather nice to call it that rather than just law, Spicer's law, because it's a book which is adds to the growing collection of personal legal statements which expand our Chambers bookshelves as well as many others, including those at Lincoln's Inn, because they're both works of personal reminiscence, political and legal, and they're books which have their place in our legal history as a profession and as we see the law evolve in the 21st century. So it's a valuable contribution of views, if you can put it that way. The book's very readable. I found it very readable anyway. Don't be put off by the large number of pages. They're just under 500. The typeface is bigger, obviously. Those pages are somewhat shorter in length than you would normally have. So the content which you go through is relatively easy to find. And as I say, I've found it an easy read. As lawyers, we all have our own views on law and on our profession, for good or for ill. It's relatively rare, surprisingly, for many practitioners to put their detailed opinions in print, and they come mainly from the left wing anyway. So we're lucky that Spice has taken the trouble to commit his views to paper, as they give the reader a most interesting commentary on such a wide range of both political and legal issues, which we have faced in the past 40 years, because I'm basically the same vintage as Robert. There are 7 chapters in all, covering the following subjects: money, class, dissent, rights, war, mystery and practice. The author ends with no conclusions, but with the most useful glossary of words and phrases, plus a bibliography for further reading, cases, abbreviations and an index at the back. And as I say, it's a contribution. Do read the introduction, which sets the scene with what we can call an unorthodox approach to the English legal system, where many valued opinions are given. However, we suspect much of what is set out in Spicer's law will probably be agreed by a silent majority, who would rather keep quiet about much of the content. That's to remain successful in practice, probably, and to get on the bench in some cases. But this silent majority is very much what modern advocacy is all about today, whilst the correctness, and I don't say political correctness, I just say correctness, of how we go about our business does tend to be controlled on a much greater scale than in the past. So voices of dissent continue to be marginalised a bit. And I say that specifically about the restricting, if you like, of advocacy. I've noticed it myself in practice, the way that the procedure rules operate and so on. And also the fact that we do sometimes need to be given a little bit of additional flexibility by the judiciary when we're going actually presenting our cases, because of the way that we do the work today. That's covered in a certain way by Robert, but I think that's an important, valid point, which I'm sure many across the board as advocates will recognise. Spicer does succeed in his primary objective of setting out a highly critical examination of the legal profession and the English legal system, with his own examples plus views which we're not commenting on for obvious reasons. His observation on the back page that the politicised nature of the critique distinguishes the book from others does, in our view, provide that alternative approach currently lacking from legal publications. So the book is a success in our view, but not something that many publishers will possibly take up. There are a number of them are probably a little bit concerned if they did so. And also, of course, there's an issue of how big the market is for this sort of thing. But I do think it's important for anyone studying the English legal system in any detail, with any possibility of looking at future changes and reviews, reforms and so forth of how we do our business, with reshaping civil and criminal justice, for instance, being at the fore. Let me conclude by saying, yes, Spicer is a rebel and a radical, but the book offers an interesting insight into a view from the left on where we are going today within the profession and with the operation of our modern common law legal system. That's as we celebrate 800 years of Magna Carta. It made us think and possibly feel a bit uncomfortable about some of the home truths set out here, but we are all the better for it. So thank you, Robert. A bit courageous, I think, doing this. I'm very glad you've done it. I hope you do well with the book itself. There it is again. Radical lawyer over 40 years. And let's just open it in the middle. You've got here, let's see, this is probably Chapter 8 on rights. Yes, human rights to a certain extent. I'm not going to open it any more than that. But he covers the Human Rights Act, of course, but he then does look at international examples too. So thank you, Robert, very much indeed. Good luck with it. And I think it's a great contribution. I do think people who are doing postgraduate research might find that quite interesting as well. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.